yet, so we're excited to get started. At this time, I'll go ahead and call Jason Tuggle up to lead us in the opening prayer.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to be together. Thank you for life and for new mercies today. We are just grateful. And Lord, I pray that as we meet today, you would bless our conversations, bless the food that we're eating, bless the hands of the folks that prepared this food. And Lord, would you inspire us as a club to continue to impact this community and to serve it well. We love you. We are grateful. In Jesus' name, amen.
You'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Tony's gonna come up and lead. Can everybody hear me? Like Kyle, can you guys hear okay back there?
All right, we're going to sing a song that everybody here knows and loves. My body lies over the ocean. Let's sing out on this song.
Got motions of Tommy, who has filled out an application, and what do you say?
Any other guys? Okay. Announcements, upcoming events. So I'll go ahead. It did not make its way into the Sprint bulletin, but I did ask him to put it out to the members. If we can just, what I like to say is one meeting. And so if we're having the meeting and we've got a speaker up here or we've got somebody doing a presentation, let's save our chatter. We try to get time before. I like to have time afterwards for everybody to socialize and engage. But when we've got somebody up here giving a presentation, let's make sure they've got our undivided attention, that we've got one meeting as one Rotary club. Let's just keep that in mind out of respect for each other and the individuals up here. If you want to talk while I'm talking, then that's fine, because that's me just yapping my mouth. But as we've got guests up here especially, or if we've got a presentation, please, let's try to remember to be respectful to this folks. All right, we've got Habitat for Humanity, the event coming up. If you don't have your tickets, see Judy or Milford about those. That's going to be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. Coach, you got something.
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who supported our basketball team this year. A bunch of y'all supported in different ways, so thank you again a lot. Those of you that came out of games, we finished up 6th in the country, lost last week in the Elite 8 to the team that played for the national championship by 4 points, so really close to the end of winning it all. But we do have upcoming our Hall of Fame banquet. We do it every 3 years. The reason we only do it every 3 years is we only have 2 sports. If we did it every year, we would run out of qualified inductees. So we have 3 former student athletes, all 3 of which were All-Americans. 1 volleyball player, 2 basketball players. Eon played professionally overseas after Saturday, finished up at UVA Wise. And Jamari's actually played at Division I school and is in the community in Salisbury. And Katie's in our community. She's an outstanding young lady. And Todd Hunt, some of you probably know, owns Jerry Hunt Super Center. He's a big-time donor to our athletic program. So we'll be inducting those 4 individuals on the 26th Saturday. See me if you like. The link is $75 a ticket. There'll be a nice, meal with it. And we have Tubby Smith, who many of you probably know, at Kentucky won the national championship years ago in the 90s and finished up his career at Hopkins University. He'll be the guest speaker that night. So it should be a fun night. But if you want the link, please see me and I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Matt. Good job. All right. Kentucky Derby. Everybody knows the date for that?
Yep. There are sheets on your table that give all the sponsorships. You will notice it's really nice that most of our larger sponsorships have already been filled. There are a couple $1,500 sponsorships left. The second page are the 500, the 250, and the $100 sponsorships. Please note that there are some half-price tickets to the dinner that come along with each one of those sponsorship levels. Last year was the first year we asked our members to please, every member, if you can, either plan to attend the event or do a sponsorship. The last page of the color, handout that you have is really a list of the charities that we support using the Kentucky Derby proceeds. So while we have other events throughout the year, like Feed Thomasville, that just goes to our Feed Ministries, the Kentucky Derby event is what allows us to do sponsorships and charitable contributions to all our local charities that we support on a regular basis and smaller projects. So this event gives us the money to give away throughout the year. So you guys, if you need, there's a couple of extra, sign-up sheets for the sponsorships. You can fill those out, give them to me or Kim, or mail them back to the PO box. Thank you.
Thanks, Hope. And if you're not going to a Kentucky Derby party and you're not traveling for your kids' baseball, then you can be at district conference as well. So you've got options for all sorts of things that. All right. And then I think there's something for United Way that day too. Or there's another function before that. But there's multiple things that day. Keith's not here, but Coffee Connections tomorrow. This is cross ties starting at 8:30. So if you're a chamber member or guest, come to that. And then Phil, do you want to say anything about First Press? You don't have to, but I just put it in here because it was close to the Coffee Connection. I know you usually got some good things to say.
It's free. Guys go worldwide. So we expect really a great performance. We'd love to have everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. All right, blood drive April 17th. Larry, I assume we need lots of space available. Okay? All right, other announcements. Steve.
I just think this is a fun fact. It was this day 87 years ago that the Women's Club in Rotary decided that Rotary would have their first meeting here. So their first meeting was 87 years ago today.
Oh my God.
Dave Williams, tell us about it. I took a play out of his playbook.
Roger Bryant's on there. He doesn't have a camera on, but if he did, I bet he's laughing.
I'd comment, but I couldn't hear what he said.
Other real announcements? What Sam had? Okay. All right. Danny, you're up. So Danny's coming up here. He's going to celebrate the birthdays, and then we're going to see if one of the March birthdays, and one of them here except for Bill. He can just talk about Bill.
I will, yeah.
So we're gonna talk about February. We're a month behind. We skipped out on February, and we don't want to leave you folks out. February, of course, is in the rearview mirror, but just a few little facts. February is one of the most often misspelled words in the English language. It's that first R that gets most of you, so think about that. I always wondered about why the leap year and why February has an extra day, and did a little research. Julius Caesar decided to add an extra day every 4 years to keep the calendar in line with the Earth's rotation or something. That's way too scientific. But back in February, we celebrated Valentine's Day. We celebrated Groundhog's Day. That's a day when we allow a rodent to predict the upcoming weather, and most of the time it's more accurate than the people we see on the television. February is also a pretty special month for Rotarians because the first ever mass inoculation against polio was conducted in February of 1954. And thanks to the Rotary Club, I think more of the world knows about polio and is doing something about it. If you were born in February, you were born in a month that has seen more amendments to the Constitution than any other single month. 6 amendments to the Constitution somehow got passed in February. The Boy Scouts of America came to be in February. And in February, I read a little socio-political thing. Bill Clinton's impeachment trial ended with an acquittal in the month of February. Maybe it's ironic, but February is also an affair to remember month and creative romance month. So, I don't know. If you were born in February, you share a birthday with Norman Rockwell and Babe Ruth and Levi Strauss. He was born in the month of February. Levi Strauss never married, therefore he didn't get to pass on his genes to the next generation. Charles Darwin, you know Charles Darwin, he was born in the month of February, and he stirred up a lot of trouble when he talked about evolution. And there was a story about a fellow that was a zookeeper. He was walking through the zoo, and he saw a gorilla sitting there, pretty smart gorilla. The gorilla had a Bible in one hand and Darwin's book in the other hand. The zookeeper said, "What are you doing reading those books?" He said, "Well, I'm trying to figure out if I'm my brother's keeper or my keeper's brother." So here's our friends that have birthdays this month, and we'll get you to stand up in just a minute, but Paul Mitchell, Billy Freeman, Michael Brandt, Tommy Hodges, Holden Surratt, David Snap, Holden Surratt, Ed Keller, Mike King, Beth Hibbets, Joe Hedgepath, and Sam Everhart. His birthday's on the 29th, so he just celebrated his 8th birthday last month. So here we are to March, and March is pretty interesting. You've lost an hour of sleep, but you gained an hour of daylight. March is determined to be the worst month for work productivity. Maybe it's because of the celebration of Mardi Gras, maybe St. Patrick's Day, whatever it is. But old Garrison Keillor said March is the month that God created to show people who don't drink what a hangover is like. I don't know what you think about March, but so our folks, March 5th, the hula hoop was invented. That's also Robert Greene's birthday, March 5th, and it's interesting, but Robert Greene won a hula hoop contest when he was a student at Carolina. Most people don't know that, but he also got 3 hours credit toward his business degree as well. March 10th, maybe it's ironic, but our own Allie Hamilton, March 10th is the date that the Salvation Army started in the United States of America. It's also Allie's birthday. March 12th, Franklin Delano Roosevelt delivered a fireside chat, and Senator Paul McCartney was knighted for his service. We recognize Kim Sage on March 12th for her service to the community. March 14th, one of the world's smartest human beings was actually born on March 14th. That was Albert Einstein. Also on March 14th, arguably one of the world's best gymnasts ever, Simone Biles, was born. But we don't think about them, we think about Jared Dunbar. He was born on that day as well. You know, Jared is he's no dummy. In fact, I think when he was in college, he had 3 books and he finished coloring 2 of them. he's quite flexible. I heard that he did a forward roll at a frat party he attended one time. So he's not too bad. March 26th, today, John Salk announced that he had successfully found a vaccine against the virus that causes polio. Also on today's date, Tennessee Williams was born. Also on this date, over in Coolidge, North Carolina, Sonny Coontz first saw the light of day. So if you happen to see Sonny today, remind him that it's his birthday. And then finally, March 28th, it's Respect Your Cat Day, it's National Black Forest Cake Day, it's National Hot Tub Day, as well as National Hat Day, and it's Keith Tobin and Bill Pless's birthday. And so Bill's going to get big double nickels this week. So, all right, so our folks that was born in any of you in November, you can stand up, and folks in March, y'all stand up. February, March. February, March. Come on, you gotta have.
You failed to mention about you being a Duke fan and Jared being a Duke fan as well. And a lot of those characteristics about his coloring books, I think there's probably some of those in Danny's office as well. All right. I thought of about 5 jokes while I was sitting there and you were mentioning Jared coloring books and all I was thinking about was Duke. And I don't know how you missed this one, but even I'll mention it, that Coach Krzyzewski and I share a birthday. So I usually try and avoid going and now being seen public on my birthday. But I don't know how you missed that one, man. All right, split clock case. We'll hope that Bill Pless wins for his birthday. Or hope, since that seems to be a regular.
Alright, we have $73 that we collected today. There is $369.50 available in the split the pot. And the last 3 numbers are 667.
Alright. That was close, Larry. Great job. Alright, Jen, you want to come up and introduce Tommy? Tommy, if you want to bring your laptop up to the start.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today. I recently met Tommy Evans. He came to the Historic Preservation Commission. He decided that he didn't decide, he has this love of history. And so we have, if you don't know, in City Hall, there is a room that is full up on the 4th floor of old historic memorabilia. So we have tons of pictures, negatives, and Tommy offered to take about 1,800 negatives and have them developed for our commission. And so he came to present and talk to us about that just recently. And his story was so fascinating. I was like, would you like to come talk to Rotary? And then found out the next day that I was on the schedule to present. So it worked out really well, and I just gotta praise God for that. But, so this is Tommy Evans. He has a lot of history in Thomasville. He is actually the 4th great-grandson of John Thomas. So he definitely was born into this city. He does currently live in Thomasville. He lives on Evans land with his wife Dana of 29 years. It's the same spot where there was once tobacco barns, a horse barn, and kennels, operated by his ancestors. So he currently operates gatekeepers training and has a unique 39-year background in law enforcement. He has a bachelor's degree from Gardner-Webb and specialized in criminal justice and advanced law enforcement. So he last served with the North Carolina DMV License and Theft Bureau, Special Operations out of Raleigh. He retired in 2008, and he has received a lot of accolades and awards. From the North Carolina DMV Commissioner and the Order of the Longleaf Pine from the Governor's Office, and he received recognition from the U.S. Attorney's Office for serving on the identity theft, financial crimes, and other special task force. So very decorated, very knowledgeable, and he's got a really cool story to tell you today. So I'm gonna turn it over to him. Thank you.
I want this guy to show him must be something. Must be like 2 foot tall and bulletproof. I don't know. I'll try to fill in one. So I'm going to be just a moment. It was really by surprise it took place, to be honest with you. You ever watch that show on Tuesday nights on PBS? It's called Finding Your Roots with Dr. Henry Louis Gates. And it chases people down and be able to find their homework. He had Julia Roberts on there and Carol Burnett and others. But set out to prove who they were not, or had questions about it. Do you remember when he had Carol Burnett on there? Carol's not Burnett. Her father, great-grandfather actually was someone other than who she thought. There were a lot of ancestors. Also, Julia Roberts was daughter Roberts. But they were basically exposed on the show itself and talked about this. So someone told me in my family I was related to John W. Thomas and others. So I set out then. You can tell I have an investigative background, so I'm going to prove it or I'm going to disprove it. It's one or the other. I'm going to know for sure at the end of the day. So the first thing I did was, I went straight to the city cemetery in Thomasville, where John W. Thomas is there. I started looking at his actual monument, those that were buried around him. I took images of there, and just over the crest of the hill is the Evans plot. You have Captain George Arthur Evans in there, his wife and other ancestors there. It's about 50 yards apart, something like this. And I saw a phone number on the building. That phone number I called, it went back to Nat Walker in the city of Thomasville. So Nat answered the phone. I said, Nat, I didn't realize it was going to be you. He said, what do you need? I said, I'm trying to chase down John Thomas's ancestors so I can relate to myself and I. He said, you're going to believe this. He said, last night I had this scroll in my house in the closet that dealt with the ancestors inside the city cemeteries. I had the scroll there. Someone told me to take it down and put it in my truck. He said, I've got this scroll in my truck for the first time in months. He said, now you call, I'll be there in 5 minutes. He arrived with the scroll and rolled it out. I said, oh my word. One went down from John Thomas and David Thomas and others as they were spread out. But there's still one missing ancestor. He said, let me call a friend of mine, Mr. Hepler. I think the first name is Randy Hepler. He wrote a book about Thomasville. Remember that? Okay. So there's a book there. He said, I can hear him talking now. He was giving my date of birth, my wife's date of birth. I said, who are you talking to? And they said, Mr. Hepler here on the phone. As I discussed it, he said, yeah, you're in the book. So I went and sent it to me. I said, okay. The Thomas book, the Thomas family said, yeah. So he was very helpful with that part of it. The book actually exists in the public library today. So in knowing this, I said, how can I have to be able to prove it. How can I prove it? I said, you may have documents, you may have folklore, that's different than proof. So I go to the library. Whenever I get to the library, I start looking for the Thomas book itself. But there's a file folder left-hand side, genealogy room, and in that file folder was a book on Thomasville Shooting Club. I had no idea I was interested, I've always been a farm instructor for years, and I've enjoyed that field of it. I love to shoot clays today. I looked at the Thomasville Shooting Club and looking at that file folder, I saw this image. This is the Thomasville Shooting. Have you seen it before? I'm telling you a few things you already know. I see some heads nodding to you out. I'm familiar with it. This was straight across from the depot in the field beside the old Mock Hotel. This was like 1890s, and if I was old, I would ask St. Berkeley what it was like living those days.
I couldn't hear you. What did he say then?
So Sam and I went to, we were in Sunday school together in Green Street 15 years ago. Yeah. Come on.
Yes.
So, yeah, so a few years ago. Anyway, I would never do that. So I pulled this out. And when I did, I saw another article inside. And the article I pulled out. Now, understand, you're finding it the same way I was. I have no idea. Nobody told me anything. I'm just learning along the way, right? Right? By the way, that's an old relative, but connected with today for 20 years up now, man. So, the article was this, and it's still there, you can look at it. But it's got the left-hand side, your left hand, is Captain George Arthur Evans from Wales. That's my great-grandfather. I said, what? And this guy over here on the other side is Windsor White. Give me one second. I'm going to make sure I don't miss anything as I go, I'll let you know. But Windsor White basically was a millionaire that was from the Chagrin Valley, Ohio. And Windsor was, he was from the white trucking, also involved in stocks, banking, and he was all, if you go to the Cleveland, Ohio Museum, you'll see Windsor White pretty much populated back in the day. If you had animal species from Africa or plant species from Africa on expeditions, he's the one that went there and brought them back. So he populated Cleveland Museum. So he comes to Thomasville. Why? It's called the Thomasville Shooting Club. Why is that an attraction? You know much about the club itself? Or the membership? There were 25 members of Thomasville Shooting Club and none from North Carolina. 25 members, all from probably the Northeast, Ohio, the region north. They came here basically come down to the depot, they hopped off and went to the hotel, went to the shooting club. That's where they stayed, but nobody was here. So what they did at that point, and I read articles dealing with this extra information, Went Cable, Went Cable, he was the editor at the time, Went wrote a book about it, and also some obituaries I found that talked about the shooting club, who was here and who was not. So then basically it talks about an article where, in this article, where my great-grandfather was hired as a manager trainer at that time. He came in from Wales to here. I know. I'm sort of rocking back on my heels at this point. Getting chill bumps, to be honest with you. I'm finding things out that I really had no idea. I haven't passed on. So then, with George Arthur, I said, now, they called him, his nickname was Cat. Okay? There are several George Arthurs. George Arthur Evans, George Arthur Jr., George Arthur III, and it continues on for the 4th and 5th today, to be honest with you. They continue on. So I want to go to a source to find out who can tell me about George Arthur. So now it's starting to change gears. I got Thomas is over here in one corner looking at them, and the Evanses and how they ever merged together. How do I want to be in this thing? So with this, I found a cousin he's an advanced age. He's living in Annapolis, Maryland. He's George III. I call him Cousin George. Now, Cousin George, I found him because there was an article that I wasn't supposed to be able to see. There's information I laid hands on, and Gary Powers knows I found about anything. So there was information I couldn't lay hands on. I found a passport that dealt with Cousin George being in the Brazil area in the 1990s. Why was he there? I contacted him and had a discussion with him. So after I talked to him, I said, tell him about your grandpa Ross. I tell him about Cat at the same time. I said, by the way, why were you in Brazil? He said, let me send you a picture. Hang on a second. I'll give you a picture. So we sent a picture of him, basically. I said, what? You recognize the guy? This is I see. I'm having to stand back up at this point. I would have been knocked down. You recognize who the guy on this side over here is, right? No, you don't. This is my cousin George over here. The one over there is now King Charles, right? So I don't know why he was teaching me how to drink orange juice left-handed. I have no idea. He's there. He's in Rio de Janeiro. It just so happened in that particular area that there was looking at history, there was a coup d'etat took place. And my cousin was over there for a few hours where his visa was revoked, he had to leave. I said, why were you there? But they revoked everybody's visas got out of the country. The coup d'etat would take place, they said, get out now, you'll make it out of office. They got them out of there. I said, so why were you there? He said, I was in the Peace Corps. I said, that's the reason you're living in Annapolis, Maryland right now, aren't you? I said, you're lying to the wrong guy. I know better. I don't want to know, but I know better. It's not that I know better. Okay, so that's taking place. So just so you'll know, some Thomasvillians have actually shook hands with King Charles. Pretty cool, huh? That's cool stuff. I can't make this up. I'm just finding it as you go. I had no idea. So he described Cap as this. He said Cap was well, he was treated royally basically. He was in the Boer Wars of Africa. It was 1900 about 1902. He said there was a ship called the SS Majestic, and a captain there that took the troops along the coast, from England down the coast into Africa to fight the Boer Wars. At the end of the Boer Wars, he decided to make a right-hand turn. When it ended, he came to the United States. The ship was recommissioned, still under the same captain, and he came to the United States, and he had one of 15 people on the ship that had quarters, had actual quarters on the ship. There's only 15 people that are on the ship. So as they came over, he came into Ellis Island. Then he went to Finnegan Kennels in Green, New York, and there where they imported bird dogs, corners, bloodhounds, and setters, 4 English breeds. Then they would travel to plantations, and they would sell them. So then Cap wound up moving. He was headed to New Orleans on the train. The story varies a little bit here. I won't be behind. It says basically somebody died on the train coming from Thomasville. Died, murdered, I heard both words. Okay? I couldn't find the article on it, so I'm not going to say for sure. Train stopped, Cap gets off. And when he gets off, he meets somebody here. But just so you know, as a matter of fact, I found something else. The SS Majestic was a ship that arrived on Ellis Island. I actually went on the Ellis Island Foundation, and you could do searches for passenger manifests. So I found George Arthur. His is the last name on the right-hand side. Is his last name on there? He's the last passenger on there on the ship. SS Majestic on this side. You see the captain's name? Captain Edward Smith. That ring a bell to anybody? Go ahead. Titanic's right. So somehow, I would imagine that Cap Evans had a chance, when 15 people who had the quarters had a chance to meet Captain Edward Smith and went down to the Titanic. Wouldn't that common sense tell you that? At least they met only 15 people in quarters, right? It would take time. And it was a pretty long trip, I imagine. Boys is a good word for it. It comes from England to Ellis Island, right? So I took the time to go back, and you do the same thing. I went back to the Ellis Island Foundation, and if you can find your ancestors who went through there, and you can search and find it, they're allowing you to engrave their names on the wall of honor. They have a new wall going in that's so high. I got a shaker. You familiar with that?
Interesting.
I got you. So I thought maybe you had it already. So with the wall of honor, you can actually, it costs some money. It's not real expensive, but you can have them engraved. So I put my great-grandfather's name on the wall of honor in August of this past year, 2024. But you can do the exact same thing I did. There's nothing special. I mean, that's about me. It's just basically, you can do the same thing I did. If you find them, put them on there. It lasts a lifetime. It honors them, right? They'll be there down. Well, they say basically you die twice in life, right? You heard that? Once when your body's exhausted, the second time when nobody speaks your name again, right? So you're allowing me to read my great-grandfather's name because I was going to live on a little bit further. I certainly thank you for that. I'm very grateful for that. Okay? It's kind of interesting, isn't it? I'm looking at my notes now. Let's see. So, do you remember, I'm going back just a second. Do you remember, see Windsor White over here? I'm going to get something out of Paul in a second.
He has a show and tell.
stepping over wires. So just so you know, when I brought it in, the trigger lock on it, okay? And also, you can see down the muzzle where it's clear, correct? Guess what shotgun this is? It's a 1933 Parker Brothers Manual. Guess who's holding it? This Windsor White shotgun. He left it back to my family. His son passed away in 1950 from a plane crash, and some of the things stayed behind. So I got this one. I thought it was interesting because it's in the article itself, right? I had others that were 1926, 1912. They were used on these shooting ranges in my home. I didn't bring everything. I don't carry it around. It's just too much there. These other shotguns are really interesting also. This is both going to be a, I hate to say what it's worth, but I have to get out of here. Is it news to you so far? Is it new stuff? Okay. So just so you'll know, Cap had 3 sons. And the 3 sons, basically, the oldest is Beresford Bernard. Okay, his name is BB. The one in the middle is Charles Emmett, was my grandfather. And Charles is Boots. And then George Austin Jr., his name is Toots. So you got Boots, Toots, and BB, or two names like Pat, Boots, Toots, and BB. So this is what it look like. So basically you had, at this point, when Windsor White came in, he buys about 500 acres, but also he leases a lot more. Basically goes to North Road out towards Lake Tomahawk. He's leasing thousands of acres. That's what you had was, people came into town from Thomasville Shooting Club, they didn't shoot in town. That's a misconception. There wasn't a town park large enough. But they leased up to some accounts of 20, 30, and 40,000 acres around Thomasville to go do the shooting. The quail hunting lodges of those days are like the golf courses of today. That's where the business was done. The handshakes. I can tell you what else went on. But they had the horses, and they dressed too. It wasn't Duck Dynasty. Nobody's wearing camouflage. And I can show you in just a second. But you'll see at the bottom where some stayed with Richford Kennel, the Windsor White bought that area before we bought the kennel, basically took it over. Whenever he did, my grandfather and uncle stayed here, but Toots went to the Quitman plantation. He went to Georgia. It's Quitman, Georgia. It's called the Dixie Plantation, Quitman, Georgia. Livingston had it. So Livingston came through like the other people with money. And they hired him, took him to Quitman, Georgia. He spent his time there. And just so you have it, Richford Kennel, that's Beresford Bernard. BB, that's Richford Kennel. It was on Kenora Road, close to Old Greensboro Road. It's close to the Everhart location, where Everhart's over there. It's in the woods behind that, just so you know what it is. This is in the same article you saw earlier, and it's in the public library also. Just so you get a look at it. That's my Uncle Barris. Barris also was a boxer in the Marines. They called Kid Evans, but he boxed professionally after that. All over here in California, I saw him action. I used to drive a school bus as a kid. They let you drive a school bus when you're 16 years old when I was in high school, right? I'd come home, Barris would be out there in the driveway. He said, I put him up, put my hand in, tap my hand so fast. He was of age at that point. I couldn't keep up. I was a kid, he was so fast with his hands, it was ridiculous. But his proudest thing was this. He had like 14 years of baggage they carried around for perfect attendance to church. 14 years, and he just dangled as we walked. Every time we went to church on Wednesday or Sunday, that was his proudest thing. You couldn't part him from that. But he was I guess you call him a man's man, put it that way. He was basically in the military. He comes out, he's in hunting and field events, and then he spends his time with God. That's, I tell you what, he's a man's man.
What's the dog's name?
I don't know. I have no idea. I wish I did. So, I had these plus other images. I have a ton of images at home, or actually, I had actual photographs at home. But these basically, that's my grandfather on the left, that's Boots, right? And the guys in the middle, see how they dress? They had ties, doors, shirts. And I remember seeing snake boots. You know what snake boots are? Someone's got them. They're the high, almost like a riding boot that you have. But they're snakers that work always to their knees. And going to the field. I wish I knew where this was shot at, but I would say probably pretty local, but you see the guys in the background over here. They got on wool type winter coats. That's how they dressed back then. Used to go hunting. If you imagine. This is the one I enjoy the most. Do you see it? You know what a well house is? An old fashioned well house is? Maybe you had a well in the yard, you had a little house over, so I fell in the hole, right? Okay. Some tell me it's a male bobcat. You see how long it is? It stretches almost all the way across the well house. Then you got actually 6 men, you can't see the 6. There's 5 men there, and I think the one in the middle is probably going to be Windsor White in early years. But if that cat wanders onto your plantation, it just can't stay. If it's hungry, nothing's going to survive. Nothing will survive. Anything on 4 legs will die.
Was that taken in Thomasville?
I think it's going to be somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Or one of the buildings out there.
So they would have killed that cat in this area? Big bobcat.
Yes, it is. You can actually see around. That's my grandfather holding his head up with his blood. So you have to take it. If it gets outside, you got to take it. Have that choice. Pretty cool, huh? So this is all kick-started because Thomasville Shooting Club. That's who started all this. The shooting club itself. So whenever the train stopped in Thomasville, whenever all the happenings took place, there was a carrier that George Arthur happened to meet. Carrie Suggs Evans. And Carrie Suggs, basically, she was young and a little bit younger than what Cap was. So apparently, whenever he got off the train, he fell in love with Carrie and stayed here. As those little winds of romance started to swirl, he let the train go away and he stayed here. He actually got engaged with the shooting club itself. Okay. Any questions so far? I see some people's minds just ticking. This is what Cleveland, Georgia. And this is Toots. So this Dexter plantation itself was owned by Livingston. It had about 40,000 acres on the Georgia-Florida line. And with that, they would have, Toots was the manager. They had trials, or national trials. And they produced a dog named Shores Brownie Doom. I've never heard of it. Shores Brownie Doom basically won the Continental Championship in 1950, 1953. He was in the American field and in the Sports Illustrated and in Time Magazine, like from Time Magazine. The author magazine, I found the actual articles myself. The Shores Brownie Doom is there. That's a picture of what the field, that's Toots and field actually with a horse, one of my favorite images. So come to find out, I started trying to find Blue Ribbons ever handed to me by my aunt. I said, Shagrin Valley 1939. I said, who won them? She said, I don't know. I said, well, you had them. Who won Blue Ribbons or yellow? Not sure. So I called the AKC. I said, you have your records on the Shagrin Valley Kennel Club. He said, we can't find it. The place it looks going to be National Bird Dog Museum. I said, what's a National Bird Dog Museum? Never heard of it. There's one in New York, there's one in Grand Junction, Tennessee. He said, you heard that before? At all. Now, I haven't. So I called the National Bird Dog Museum to ask some questions about it. The lady answered the phone, knew Toots. Knew the dog, knew Toots, knew the Livingston's and everything. You knew Toots. Now, I hope Toots was a trumpet player, I don't know. But this is the entrance to the National Bird Dog Museum. If you go to Grand Junction, Tennessee, if you ever visit any museum anywhere, you need to go to Grand Junction, Tennessee to see the National Bird Dog Museum. It's 33,000 square feet. And inside of it, you have the dogs, you have information about the owners, the handlers, the horses, the shovels. There's buckboards where they carry out the birds and the dogs into the field. If you can think of it, it's in there. If I went to any museum, that's where I would go. Now, but in Grand Junction, Tennessee, you only have a Dollar General, a stoplight, and a cafe closes at 2 o'clock. That's all it's there. This is the wall that they're on. As soon as you walk in, left-hand side top, you'll see Short Brown doing our twice, 1950-53. You also see the wall on its right side where the Short picture's at, and American Picture. So now Thomasville has somebody standing from here, besides shaking hands with King Charles, or Prince Charles at the time, and all those other things come along. They're in National Bird Dog Museum also. So they'll wonder what happened next. I'm chasing homeward, yes. And I'm chasing the homeward, basically, I find no census records local. I find something in Vanderbilt Hotel in Clare, Alabama. There, Captain Carey owned the Hotel Vanderbilt for about 2 years almost. I was trying to find my grandfather's birth certificate. I probably had the actual hotel itself. And in that, I think it was a duplicate of what you had at Thomasville. You had the train depot, you had the hotel, and you had the actual unlodged itself. Then we had to set that up. And my grandfather's actually born there. But they actually had a Vanderbilt Hotel also, as a spin-off from Thomasville Shooting Club, right? And here's the deed on the side. I wanted to find anything but there's the deed where grandfather bought it, great-grandfather bought it. That's what they look like. That's Cap and that's Carey. So once again, they finish up in Alabama. I looked a little further and I found someone had some property back in Thomasville, about 1970. In 1970, there was something called a Southern Finishing Mill. I was looking for deeds and other homework, and I found a deed where my great-grandparents you just saw were involved in something called a Southern Finishing Mill. So 5 people had it. You had Captain Carey, you had Robinson on property 4, you had W.C. Pennington and his wife Lorena. So W.C. is actually Casper Pennington. Casper was on city council at that time, 1917 and 1919. So, as I looked at this, I said something still unique about it. So you've got 2 women in 1917 on the board of directors of the corporation in Thomasville, right? That in itself is different, correct? But if you look at the actual document itself, which I have here, you can find where the ladies, the women involved, Carrie had 48%, Lorena had 10%, they had 58% of the corporation for Southern Finishing Mills. They were the majority shareholders for Southern Finishing Mills, and the first finishing mill in Thomasville 3 years before women could vote in the electoral college. They could walk in and vote in the general election, but yet you had 2 ladies who were majority stockholders of Southern Finishing Mills. That's got to be rare in itself, right? It's got to be something different, correct? Are you on overload? This is very neat. So I'll put down the talking points just to turn back over. So you got Prince Charles involved, you got Titanic involved with Cap, also the Wall of Honor, Ellis Island, Thomasville Shooting Club, you got the Bridgeport Kennel, Coopman Plantation with National Bird Dog Museum, and the Vanderbilt Hotel in Clare, Alabama, and also the Southern Finishing Mill. Those are talking points for today. Anybody heard anything new today? Anything different than what I had in the past? I see what it is. Any questions so far? This finishes up for me. I'm going as fast as I could to get through it. I feel like I'm back to work right now. Trust me, I skipped a lot. I flew through this thing. Any questions about it? Southern Finishing Mills basically still exists as a core building. It's at 117 Taylor Street, just beyond City Recreation Center. It's burned, but it's still saying that. I think later became Morris Mills and then Laughlin Black, so it's still there. Okay, so I will turn back over. I will hang around a few minutes. If a question comes to mind, if you want to ask me, that's fine. I'll have around and be able to answer that for you. But thank you for your time. Again, I appreciate it very much.
You just said it there. Say it. Try to trip on. Tommy, thanks for presenting on that. We appreciate it. I'm trying to process it all. There's a lot of really neat information. If you'll go ahead and stand and join me before we pass. Personally, my favorite season of the year, which is pollen season, so make sure we do what we need to do to keep allergies at bay, stay healthy. But I appreciate everybody's attention. We appreciate Jen bringing Tommy and all of our visitors and guests. You're always welcome at any time, so we'd love to have you back. But as we go out and interact with individuals and try to make an impact on those that we serve in the community, let's ask ourselves these things. First, is this true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be